We continue in the 7th letter, trying to understand what does it mean, a part of God. How can you have a part of God? How could God be divisible? What we've explained so far is that there's the essence and core being of God that is found in creation, but not vested within creation, and therefore not accessible or real to us, except for the light of God that radiates from him, from the name of God. That's one with him, but it radiates. And that radiation, which means a contracted light, like the sun, you look at the sun, a big ball, right? From there, the light is contracted into one ray that emerges. I mean, many rays, but take the one ray that emerges to get contraction as it emerges out from the sun, right? So, that which emerges, so think about it, the ray of light from the sun as it emerges, that which is higher up versus that which is lower. It's getting much more of a powerful ray of light. As it becomes more and more distant, removed from the sun, it becomes less and less diminished. And that's how God, he gives vitality to creation. And that's why we have from this an infinite degree of worlds and infinite creations, because of the numerous contractions of the light that animate beings that have been created, formed, and made. Created the world of Bria, formed the world of Yitzira, and made the world of Asiya. And this that is now, this light that we're talking about, that's animating all of creation, again, all of the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, and this physical world, they're divided primarily into 613 rays. Why 613? Because they correspond to the 613 commandments of the Torah. And these commandments are in fact 613 kinds of conduits to transmit the light of God, the radiation of the infinite Ein Sof. And why 613 to radiate? As we said, the commandments. But what's the function of the 613 lights? Well, its function is to illuminate our soul. That our soul is made up of 248 organs and 365 sinews, which equal 613. I mean, the physical body is made that, and with the physical body being the home, the housing of the soul, the soul too is made up of 248 spiritual organs and 365 sinews. Because why is this light coming from God anyways? Why is he animating the world? For what? Tree hugger, animal, lover, for that purpose? No, he does it for the sake of man, who's the embodiment of the soul. The soul that radiates, that's made up of 613 parts, that is a reflection of 613 commandments of the Torah. Because the ultimate purpose is the person, man. Now, even though God himself, his essence being, is indeed utterly uncompounded and cannot be possibly understood or perceived or taken in as a part that would be divisible, nevertheless, when we're speaking about the radiation, the life force of God that radiates and gives vitality to this world and to all the worlds down here below, there we can speak about radiation. We can speak about array. We can speak about parts. In other words, there's 613 basic parts in which the light of God is diffused and animates, creates something from nothing, animates everything in creation. And the truth is, that's general 613. But those 613 are then subdivided into infinite smaller parts. That 613 is a primary division. But more specifically, just as the Torah has 613 commandments, but each one of the laws, as we learn in Maimonides, and as we learn Maimonides and everywhere, are further subdivided. So you have like one law of Shabbos, the observance of the Sabbath. Well, that's broken down into a myriad of laws. So in other words, so we have 613 basic divisions of divine energy, power, light, but more specifically, ad infinitum details. That reflects the ad infinitum details of Torah law, without number. It reflects the ultimate supreme will of God. So our soul absorbs the general 613 commandments, lights of God that are based on the commandments, because our soul is made up of 613 components, as the body is, right? As the soul gives vitality and gives uniqueness to every part of the physical limbs of the body through the unique light of the soul that vests itself in the body. But furthermore, it's our soul that absorbs not just the 613 that's vested in it of the divine light, but also the innumerable details that also absorb in the divine radiance. It's also ad infinitum that the soul absorbs, as it's based again on the ad infinitum, the infinite amount of teachings of Torah. So, but basically, again, the soul divided into 613 elements, 248 so-called organs, 365 sinews, not physical, right, but in spiritual sense. That's the general breakdown. And this, then, we can understand how Adam comprised all of the souls in the world. How does he comprise all of the souls in the world? Because the basic comprising of the souls, of the light, is 613. Well, his soul was incorporated all the 613, and therefore of all future souls. That's in general, and in more specific, innumerable sparks of souls, right? 613. General kind of, and then embodiment of the sparks of the souls of all future generations, which is the souls of all the patriarchs, the tribes of Israel, until the coming of Mashiach. He's an embodiment of. Which this is what the scripture tells us, that the souls of Israel will be like the sand of the sea, that it cannot be measured nor counted because of their great quantity. And therefore the embodiment of all the souls. Okay. So, with that we conclude today's learning. From here we will go on to understand what that means. Well, we're getting a little idea of what it means, a portion. So the essence of God is not a portion, but what radiates from God to animate all of creation, and particularly the divine soul. We see portions. What does that mean exactly? Well, in the middle of a thought, so it's not fully developed. But stay tuned, it will be. It will be fully developed. So I'd just like to bring out the beautiful, you see the divine in everything. At least we could see the divine in everything. And just look at us and our makeup. The body's got 248 organs, as the Torah tells us. There's the breakdown in somewhere in Rambam and other places explaining that. 365 sin years. Excuse me. And the reason we have that is because the soul actually has it. The soul is made of components of 613. Obviously not physical components, spiritual components. And that's why the soul is what animates the body. So, the fact that I can do this with my finger, it's the soul that gives me animates and gives the power for my finger to go up and down, from my eye to see, my ear to hear. The soul vests itself, a unique part of the soul in the ear that makes it the power of hearing. Right. Now, where does the soul get that from? It gets it from God. What of God? Well, God is beyond any kind of division, except for what radiates from him to animate 613 basic divine rays of light. Why 613? Well, because God's will is made up of 613 commandments. So therefore that ray is an expression of the divine will of God that is animating specifically me and you and everything. How it correlates and the metaphor of it all is so beautiful and so amazing. Hope we see that and appreciate it. Okay, let's go to some questions. A reminder, we have Rambam coming shortly. After Rambam, we have tonight 6:30 Torah portion. You don't want to miss. 6:30 on Zoom and on Facebook, Chabad ZK. I wonder if I should put it on other platforms. Never thought of that. Let me know what your thoughts are. On Instagram, maybe Clubhouse. Put on 6:30 on Clubhouse. Clubhousers, what do you say? Let me know. But most importantly, it's on Zoom. Okay, got some questions over here. Vida, will Hashem open up the revealed Shekhinah to be much more when Mashiach comes? Absolutely. Absolutely correct. Does a neshama from a higher world see more Hashem Shekhinah than a neshama from a lower world? Yeah. And sometimes that's why, people we call crazy people. You know why they're crazy? Because they see more, and that can make you crazy. Right? Because the light was too much for the vessel to hold it. Is this how we become a light unto other nations? Said Danielle, excellent question. Yeah, absolutely. And that's how our light then is shared with others, how it includes ultimately all others, and how all other nations will be part of the redemptive process with Mashiach. Yes, Daniel. More on that, how we become that, in the forthcoming classes. Okay. Lori, just to be clear, the world and the contraction of God's name are one, unified, no separate, since God and the Creator and creation itself. The division of God's way of making each of us sense our individual existence. So, okay, good question, Lori. Again, is God found in this world, the essence and the being of God? Yes, but not in a way that's contained, and not in a way that I can contain it and experience it. Not now, at least. Let's wait for Mashiach. But a radiation, yes. A light of, yes. That's a contracted light. Now, that contracted light is from, just like the name of a person is sort of is not the essence of the person, right? Your name doesn't define you. It's sort of what emits from you, so to speak. So it's like that radiation. So from God's name emits the contracted light. Now that name of God and God are one, just like you and your name are part of you. So the name of God is one with God, but it's a contracted light that radiates from the name of God, and the greater the contraction, the lower it comes down to create a made world, a physical world ultimately. Okay? Cliffhanger, yeah. Okay, 1 second. I see a question from... Where is it? Okay, Yenta. If Adam is the embodiment of all souls, how does the Jewish people come and differ from the non-Jewish souls? Excellent question. If Adam is the embodiment of the souls, what does it mean? So it's the embodiment of the Jewish souls, and through the Jewish souls, the embodiment of become ultimately of all other souls. That's the basic idea, but more on that. We'll have to get back to that.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Go ahead, Vilma.
So I wrote it in the chat box about how you said Adam was the root of all souls. Was he capable of holding God's essence? I know he was on a very different spiritual level than the humans that evolved from him. Or was he just capable of holding the 613 portions?
Well, remember, the 613 are the general, rays of light, right? This is all a metaphor, right? So let's give the metaphor for this further, so we can appreciate that. So we got organs in the body, right? So you've got you've got your liver, you've got your kidneys, so that's one general organ, right? But if you can break it down further. There's the amino acids in there. There's the the breakup of the atoms and the molecules, and the different components. You can break it down further and further when you speak about a liver, right? So in general, it's a liver, but it's specifically, well, it's a bunch of chemicals. It's a bunch of molecules and a bunch of atoms. So, are we referring it in the general or in the specific? So it's both are true. It's the same thing with Adam's soul. He was an embodiment of the 613 rays of light of the divine, which is the embodiment of all the souls, but more specifically of all souls, and that's the sparks. That's the atom, so to speak. So both things are true. And yes, don't forget who Adam was. Yes, he sinned. We know he did. That's a different story. We won't go there now. How could it be? But he is, yes, extremely lofty soul, because he was, the handiwork of God. God directly made him, as opposed to God has made me, but not as direct as he made Adam, right? From the earth and blew into him the breath of life. He makes me, with a partnership of mother and father. But so therefore, yes, he was a very lofty soul, an embodiment of that in the fact of 613 and in the sparks of all souls. Is that clearer now?
Yes, and it just, a lot of the things that you said, I think about how it applies to like individual sparks and souls, and how you were saying that, the soul vests itself in different parts of the body, and so each person is unique with their functions.
That's why we didn't get there yet. That's where we're going with this. You're ahead of the times.
Well, I only think about that because some people are born with like weaker eyesight than others. That's just how they are.
Right. Yeah, but that's where we're headed. It's just setting it up now to appreciate that. Thank you, Daniela. So specifically, only 360 rays of light in the match of 613 body parts and radiate those 613 in the world, or other rays of light besides. No. Well, again, that's a 613 is the general, as we just explained, but that's subdivided. So again, take an organ, and you can subdivide it, right? It's a liver. That's the generality of it. But you can subdivide it into all of the chemical parts, right? And then all of the molecular parts and so on. So they're both true. Will our bodies be? We'll have to wait for Mashiach. Good question. I don't know. Rachel has a question on Instagram. If a part of the physical body becomes ill or injured, is the link to the spiritual part of the body and also lacking and needing healing? Very good. So, good question. If there's something lacking in a physical organ of the body, what does that mean to the spiritual organ of the soul? So it could mean that yes, there will be something lacking in the soul. As the old aphorism is, a small hole in the body is a big hole in the soul, because that's the source of it. So yes, of course, the soul is also ailing and needs healing. And often we don't recognize that. We just think it's a physical thing, but not a spiritual ailment. Whenever we have a physical ailment, we need to appreciate that it's really coming from a spiritual ailment. And if we will look inside and seek the spiritual healing, then that will help also the physical healing. Now, that doesn't mean don't deal with it on a physical level. Yes, deal with it on a physical level, and because the Torah tells us that you need to heal yourself. Absolutely. But don't think of it merely as that. Go to the root source of it and bring healing there. A lot more on that to be discussed. Beautiful thought, though. Thank you, Rachel. Laurie, did the Jewish laws come from Abraham and Sarah, and after letter Hey that added to their names? That's where they took root. They begin in Adam's soul, though. More on that another time. But I got to run right now. Okay. A reminder: 6:30 for Torah studies. Didn't hear anybody, but let me know. Private message me about Clubhouse. Put it on there at 6:30. Put it on Instagram at 6:30. Or just leave it, because it's actually kind of nice when we have our Zoomers zooming in. I mean, we'll do that too. It's not that we won't do that. More personal and intimate. And a reminder of TRC tonight, 8 p.m. I'm getting great feedback of how this is really great personal growth. If you want more on that, go to tinyrabbi.org.com and do join us. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Tzich and Kadesh. Much I can. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing, wonderful day.